The NFL draft's a thing of the past, but let's wrap up the draft cycle by giving some of these teams their flowers. I already did the NFC draft grades earlier. Now it's time for the AFC, starting with the Baltimore Ravens, and they opened up by getting Nate Wiggins. I'm sure they wanted a tackle, which they would address with their next pick at 62 with Roger Rosengarten. But grabbing Nate Wiggins is a good start. Oh, good start. Youngest corner in this class. And people might be worried, oh, he's so thin. Oh, that boy needs to put some meat on his bones. He's young. He will put on that meat. He was up to like 183 at his pro day, so I'm not worried about that. He's got the frame to which he could fill it out. He's just a wonderful athlete, legit ball skills, and good motor, man. Go look at that North Carolina play where he ran down the running back and forced a fumble on the goal line. It was utterly nuts. But they do get that tackle in Roger Rosengarten at pick 62. That was about the range I thought for him. Might honestly end up being a guard, but good pick nonetheless. They get good value with Adisa Isaac at pick 93. He was kind of falling. Like for me, this edge class really fell off in day 3. So being able to come in and grab an edge, because they got some woes at the edge position. They brought back Kyle Van Noy, but David Ojabo getting an ACL injury, if you weren't aware, during his draft process, an Achilles injury. So injuries will be a concern with him. So finding that next player to be opposite of Odafe Owe is very key, and you're doing it with another Penn State player. I kind of like that. Devontae Walker, this was about his range for me. They get a good vertical threat, good speedy vertical threat. So you get that potential OBJ replacement there. And then TJ Tampa was much higher on my board. He was, I think, 45th on my big board. You get him at 130. I know that some of the NFL may have not been high on him because of maybe he was a bit more scheme dependent, but I like this pick. That was a certified steal. And when it comes to the draft, you want to be able to nail the first 4 rounds. And that's typically when I grade these drafts, those kind of hold the weight. If you're able to get maybe some steals on day 3, or maybe you reach on day 3, I don't really count it against you or for you as much. It's really what you do in those first 4 rounds. And they addressed, for one, positions of value: corner, tackle, edge, wide receiver. And they did it without having to reach on players. And they were able to snag some, in my opinion, steals along the way. They do go running back at 165 with Rasheen Ali. Unfortunately, I think he tore his bicep at the Senior Bowl, but you know this guy's a really good athlete. Fumbles were a concern with him during his collegiate career, but I thought that was about the range he would go in. They got Devin Leary, backup quarterback. Cool, that's fine for pick 218. And then they wrapped it up with center Nick, Samak out of Michigan State. Didn't make my final 330 big board, but I did like a Sanusi Kane, who could be a box, could be a slot. Regardless, they needed some more depth at safety. The really only safeties they had on the roster were Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams, who is a free agent after the season. You could say Darius Washington, but he's more of a slot type. So I like the Kane pick. It kind of filled a pick of need, and it was within reasonable value. At the end of the day, I really like what the Ravens did. They addressed positions of value with really good players in the first 4 rounds. I'm going to give this my highest grade, an A+. If you're unfamiliar with my grades, I got A+, which is above and beyond. You did a great job. I got an A, which is, hey, really good class. I like it. B, above average. C, average. Nothing really to write home about. Then you got D, below average. And then F is just flop. You flat out sucked during the draft. Fun fact, this was kind of a hard class to get wrong. It was a really good draft class, and I thought a lot of teams did well. And I think a big part of that was because, well, it was a good draft class. Let's go ahead and move on to, who do we got next? The Buffalo Bills, arch rivals, because I'm a Dolphins fan. But I will be unbiased. They trade back once in the first round, and they were like, it was so good the first time, we're going to do it again, but this time out of the first round, picking up, or I think they turn a fourth into a third, and they turn a sixth into a fifth. Like, all in all, solid. That's solid value to grab some extra picks, and I mean, they end up using that third round pick to get Dwayne Carter later on. But at the beginning of the second round, first pick, they snag Keon Coleman. He is vastly different than what they currently have on that roster, maybe apart from like Mac Hollins. So I like the pick, man. Keon Coleman was a very divisive prospect. Some people were like, oh man, this guy sucks, he can't separate, but he has that ability. They look at the 40 time, oh, he's slow, but then you look, he had like the fastest gauntlet drill. He was the only receiver to hit 20 miles per hour on the gauntlet drill. This guy's game speed is pretty nice. He's just got to kind of learn the nuances of route running and trying to create that separation, but doesn't really matter if he does or doesn't, because he's so good at the contested catch point. So I thought Keon Coleman was pretty fair. He was 36 on my board, so it was a good pick there. Cole Bishop legitimately fits, in my opinion, what this team likes at safety. He just felt like a Bills pick. Tried and true. Like it there. They do address the interior. They do get some meat. I think Dwayne Carr's like 309, 310. Good run defender and has a nasty bull rush as a pass rusher. So I was like, okay, man, I wouldn't say thus far in the draft they got really like stellar picks, but they got guys within their range of projection and quite honestly at positions of need for him. They get Ray Davis, who it's interesting. I think he is a good back. If he is a part of your running back committee, you feel good. He's going to eat mainly on early downs. It's a fine pick. Good pick. They did lose Latavius Murray, who's kind of like a big boy back. I forget who they signed as a UDFA. I think they brought in a big back. I'm not positive. Don't quote me on that. I did a UDFA sign-ins video yesterday, so you can check that sucker out. I'll even leave it in the iCard. Look at that. Maybe I'll remember to put it there. Now let's get to rounds 5 through 7, which honestly I thought they did a solid job. They go after center Cedric Van Pran. Really good value. He was 107 on my big board. He ends up being there at 141. Edafon Ilofosho. Doesn't surprise me. I had him as a top 100 pick. I'm not shocked that he falls to day 3. He only had 1 year of being a full-time starter because of injuries, but tested out really well, tested out better than I thought he would. And someone who I think already has the cerebral part of the position there, he can come in and honestly maybe force his way into some early playing time. We'll see. We'll have to wait and see about that sucker. Javon Solomon, I kind of banked on him going to the Bills. He was a top 30 visit. Short, but he's got length, can get after it. 168 seems like the good, like right on the money value for him. Tylen Gramble, fun fact, was a high school quarterback, went to Jacksonville State to be a tight end and eventually made his way to tackle, and then obviously to Central Florida, where, I mean, the dude's a good mover. He's a former tight end. Who would have thunk it? So I don't mind the pick there. Daquan Hardy, I thought, was one of the better day 3 slot options. Very fast athlete, just undersized. Travis Clay, interesting. Didn't watch this guy because, fun fact, he didn't play football. I think he was a boxer and played rugby at England. So he's part of the International Pathway program. And I think you could keep him on the roster during the season without him counting against the roster. So it's not a bad shot there at pick 221. But at the end of the day, all in all, like, again, not like extremely wowed. Like, this was a fine class. They moved back once in the first round, and then they decided to move out of the first round altogether. They focused on needs, but didn't sacrifice value when doing so. Even the trades seemed fine. Like, nothing, like, they didn't really rip anyone off, and they were not like ripped off. Like, it was fair for all parties involved. it was a fine class for the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to give it a B. I think that's fair. You tell me, Bills fans, you think this Dolphins fan is being unfair? You let me know in the comment section below. Okay, let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals. Who dey? Well, Day, I thought, did a pretty fine job. They go and get Amarius Mims at 18. I figured it would be him or Talanise Fuanga. Fuanga wasn't available at that pick. So they grab Mims. You don't have to start him right away. That's what I like about this pick. You can develop there behind Trent Brown, who's probably not going to start a full season, but he'll be probably good for like 13 to 14 games before he gets hurt. And Mims could come in there and like initially develop. And honestly, if you throw him out there early, probably could get by on physical and athletic tools. He's such a toolsy prospect. I loved the pick there. They get Chris Jenkins at pick 49. There was a run early in the second round on defensive interior. And this ends up being, I think, the right value for Chris Jenkins. Someone just needs a little bit more polish and be more put together as a pass rusher. But he brings you decent size, just under 300 pounds. He brings very good athleticism, and he's very sound in run defense and gap discipline. Don't know if you'll ever get a pass rushing upside from him. He never broke out in that one area at Michigan, but I think it ends up being solid. What was pick 80? Jermaine Burton. I like that. Like, this cat probably could have been a back end of the first round type of player, but he falls because of the red flags. He had some, like, butted head of coaches back at Georgia before he decided to transfer at Alabama. So there's no denying this cat's ability. So it's a good pickup. Is this a Higgins replacement? Is it a Boyd replacement? Could be both, honestly. He could do both. So I like the Burton pickup. At 97, McKinley Jackson. This is earlier than where I had him. I had him 158, but I understand because there weren't a lot of interior players with really good size. He comes in at like 326, and he's actually a pretty good athlete too. It's just sometimes he plays a bit out of control here and there. So it's a fine pick, solid pick. A little bit of a reach, but not heavily, not so much that I'm just appalled by it. Though Eric Gall, their last pick here in those valuable rounds, again, rounds 1 through 4, a little bit more appalled. I will admit, even Gojo knows. The general draft community was much higher on Eric Gall than I was. So we get to the 5th round and they get Josh Newton. That's really good value at corner. Again, position of value there. Like that. I like Tanner McLaughlin's nice. I had McLaughlin higher on my board than Eric Gall. So it kind of feels like you kind of just potentially burned pick 115. But again, some people were higher on all. I'm willing to acknowledge that. And then they go Cedric Johnson. Great value at 214. I had him at 133 on my big board. He's a project edge. I get that. Won't have to start early here. Nice. I like that. Dude's got some upside, though. Some legitimate upside. They get Dijan Anthony, safety / slot out of Ole Miss. That's reasonable value at 224. And Matt Lee is good value at 237. I liked him as a center in this class. And I mean, you're probably going to be looking for that heir apparent at center. Ted Karras probably only got maybe another year or two left in him. I don't know when his contract comes up either, but I liked the get there. Like, ultimately, when it came to the Cincinnati Bengals in this draft, like, they stayed put at their picks. They got appropriate value with each of their picks, aside from like McKinley Jackson being a slight reach, but I understand because of his size. All was a big reach for me. However, I know I was lower on him than many others. Still a reach though for me at 115. A solid day 3 really makes this a nice draft class, though it never, I think, reached that high crescendo, never went above and beyond. So I'm going to give it a B grade. Right, moving on to the Cleveland Browns. We're going to stay within the division here. And the Cleveland Browns, honestly, for what they had, I thought did a very good job. The Browns were short on picks, but they filled needs without reaching. And they landed Miles Harden at pick 227, which is really good value. It's really hard to give this class anything high just because they were they were limited on picks, limited on high value picks, not having like a first rounder kind of sucked. Only having 2 picks inside the top 150 kind of sucked. And they really kind of looked at positions of need and didn't really attack positions of value until that 5th round, 6th round, 7th round area. But I really like the Michael Hall pickup. He was a late riser after not necessarily his testing. I knew he was going to test well, but like getting up to, I think he was up to 299, close to 300. Someone that probably won't play early downs. You're going to really use him for that like pass rushing option. But with the amount of depth they have on the interior, but keep in mind, a lot of those guys are 1 or 2 year contracts. So you're looking for that next one in line. Zach Zentner was a good pickup. Joel Bitonio is getting up there in years. I think he's going to be 32 to start the NFL season. So you might want to start building his heir apparent. They do a good job with the offensive line of bringing in guys to be the heir apparent to their current starters. So I like those 2 picks. Jamari Thrash was a good pick there at pick 156. Funny enough, I had him at pick 157 on my big board, so that's good for me. And kind of feels like things with Elijah Moore have kind of been on and off. And kind of Jamari Thrash looks like the move to be like, okay, hasn't really worked out with Moore. Maybe we can do so with Thrash. Bookie Watson, a linebacker, to me that was good value. He's a good thumper. They kind of needed those thumpers. You got JOK now. They got Jordan Hicks, I think, who's really just kind of a bridge option. Still a good starter though. Miles Harden, I kind of mentioned that inside outside flexibility. They are going to have to decide if they want to pay Greg Newsome. I mean, they want to pay. They got to decide, can they pay? And Juwan Briggs, just more talent on that interior. I love that cat. Dude's like a little bowling ball. A lot of upper body strength. Keeps his legs driving through contact. I had him at 209. He goes to 243. So good pick. Like, there's not a bad pick here by the Browns, but kind of limited with what they can do. I ended up giving it a B. Just a solid class for the Browns. Moving to the Denver Broncos, and they shock absolutely no one and go Bo Nix. I'm so mad at myself. In my final mock draft, I decided to actually step away from, okay, Bo Nix going to the Broncos after I'd done it for like the better part of 6 months. And he ends up going to the Broncos. They don't even move. But they got their quarterback great. Might have been a little bit earlier than people like. A lot of people had Bo Nix as quarterback 6 in this class. I had him at quarterback 4. So for me, this is fine value, but I get it. They get him at 12. It's A-okay. But after that, they just went off and started getting good value. Like Jonah Ellis, really good pick up there. Like I had him at 59 on my board. He goes at 76. I was kind of hoping they might get a beefier edge rusher because it kind of feels like they got a little bit undersized guys there, guys that are like sub 250, might not have like sub 33-inch arms. So I was hoping maybe they go for more beef, but like Ellis is a great option. Don't get me wrong. I was a big fan of Ellis. And he's got that football pedigree with his family, his dad playing in the NFL, his brothers playing in the NFL. Like 3 of his brothers have either been a part of or still currently are a part of NFL organizations, with probably Caden being the best known one down there in Atlanta. And then they move up to get Troy Franklin, and it didn't cost too much. They threw a 5th and a 6th, became a 7th to move up to go get him. And Troy Franklin fallen. You could guess why he ends up falling. Don't have an absolute answer on that. Oh, he's too thin. Well, he's young. He's put on weight year to year, so I imagine that size will get better. Oh, well, the ball skills weren't good in 2023, but they were good in 2022. The gauntlet drill was so terrible, but we've seen him be a good route runner there for Oregon. But more importantly, I like you pairing up Bo Nix with the guy he succeeded with the last 2 years at Oregon. That's a good pickup to me, well worth it. Chris Abrams-Draine is a good pickup at 145. Now we're going to rounds 5 through 7. He's got inside-outside flexibility, but I feel like he ends up in the slot, which they already got McMillan there. But we'll see. We'll see. Audric Estime, they get a legit power back there in the backfield. I like it. It's a good running back room there in Denver. Devon Veal, I don't love this pick. He did make my top 330 big board. Big part of that is went on a mission trip. Then he returned to college after 2 years. He's 26, but I get it. He's got size to him. Don't know if he makes the roster, but at 235, doesn't really matter. Nick Gargilo played a couple of spots because of injury there for South Carolina, but ultimately I think he's a center. And fun fact, if you didn't know, they lost Lloyd Cushenberry, so they could use guys that could come in there and compete. And also, one thing a lot of people are kind of missing from this draft class is they traded a 6th-round pick, a 2026 6th-round pick, to get John Franklin Myers. That's good. I like that. I like that quite a bit. So they made some moves. Like Broncos, they got their quarterback. They got the quarterback everyone thought they would. They paired him up with his former weapon, Troy Franklin. And it only cost them 2 midday 2 picks. Despite only having 2 top 100 picks, they got positions of value with very good players. And I mean, their first 4 picks addressed corner, addressed wide receiver, edge, and quarterback. I like it. I came away really liking their draft. And I'm throwing the John Franklin Myers acquisition into this because it happened during the draft. So I'm giving them an A, man. Good class for the Denver Broncos. I think they did a stellar job, especially with the limited capital they had. Let's move to the Houston Texans because there's definitely some interesting things to talk about here from their draft class. Now, this was kind of, for me, a tale of 2 drafts. Because since they didn't have a 1st-round pick, and I'm not including the Stephon Diggs acquisition in here because when I do these draft grades, I do it based on solely what they did during the draft. You know, they got Stephon Diggs with this draft capital, but they did it during free agency. This is, I'm just talking about solely what they did during the draft and who they picked. Now, for me, they made the most of their picks in the 2nd round, in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round. They got quality players with their first 2 picks at positions of value. And grabbing Kamari Lassiter, I know, oh my gosh, he ran a 4.64, 4.61. He's slow, but he has really good tape. Athleticism, I don't think will be a problem in DeMeco Ryans' defense. And he might end up kicking into the slot. I don't know. We'll see. Blake Fisher's a good pickup. This might allow you to move off of Titus Howard's contract, though he did get a contract extension last summer. So, I mean, this means Blake Fisher at least sits for a year, which is good, which is A-okay to me. I like that pick. Kalen Bullock is a solid pickup. You get a true center fielder, and I'll tell you, there weren't many guys that were center fielders in this draft class when it came to the slot or safety position. Cade Stover, fine tight end too. You did sign Dalton Schultz, but I mean, Cade Stover, I don't know if he was really anything more than a tight end too. But I did like him in this class. I think that's a solid pick. But this is the thing. We get to the 5th, 6th, 7th round. And I feel like they just burned each and every pick. They just burned it. And they didn't even address positions of value either. They go with Jamal Hill, Jahar Jordan. Two guys didn't even make my top 330 big board. Linebacker, running back, not positions of value. I get it that they were top 30 visits, but straight up, I don't really care that much. Like, to me, those were just not great picks. They weren't great picks. Maybe they proved me wrong, but at the end of the day, they're fifth, sixth round picks. Doesn't really matter all that much. Or sixth round. I think they were actually both 6th round picks. Yeah, I think they were both 6th round picks. So again, probably doesn't matter that much. They go get Solomon Byrd. Could be a good rotation player at some point, but don't think he's any more than a depth body. But a 238, I don't really mind as much. Again, I don't really mind as much compared to picks 188 and 205. I did think they got two solid players at 247 and 249 in L'Jarius Henderson and Marcus Harris. So you get you get interior depth there with Marcus Harris, and Henderson probably ends up playing guard, but shoot, maybe he plays tackle. He does have value like that. However, where I started, like what I really didn't like was them starting to give away picks. Like they gave away a 4th, they gave away a 2025 5th, and it's like, okay, those aren't like tremendously valuable picks, so you could argue the 4th is. But still, I don't know, man. I walked away from this draft feeling like I like what they did in the first part of the draft, but it wasn't anything that was too wild, too crazy. You grabbed a slow corner who still a lot of people like because he's very polished, very nuanced. So you're willing to bet against the grain that he can make it in the league. The developmental tackle. And then Galen Bullock, good center fielder. You worry about the physicality. Then you get to the second half of the draft, and you really feel like they just kind of took major reaches. Granted, they're 6th round picks, but still, like I feel like they just kind of like, let's screw it. Like I ended up giving them a C. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh here. Like, but for me, this draft class is so hard to get wrong. This NFL draft was stacked with talent. And I felt like it was hard to get wrong, but I come back and I look at the players that they got, and I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe you feel different than me. Let me know in the comment section below. That ultimately, that's my takeaway for the Houston Texans draft. Moving to the Indianapolis Colts, we're gonna stay in division for these next two, and they end up grabbing Latu at pick 15. Some way, somehow, they get their pick, their choice, the pick of the gander of defender. They go Latu. Latu is probably the most well put together technician in this class. I think he got like the neck injury is a thing of the past, got cleared. Remember, if you're worried about the neck, it was only Washington, the Huskies, doctors that weren't willing to clear him. He was highly sought out after other programs whose doctors cleared Latu. Ultimately, he decided UCLA. It was the same doctor that did Peyton Manning's neck surgery. I don't think the neck's going to be a problem. He's played 2 full years. But then they get tremendous value with Adonai Mitchell, and they trade up, and it costs close to nothing. I think it was only 2 5th-round picks. Like, holy moly, heck yes. What a great draft thus far. They get that vertical threat and a nuanced route runner there on the outside in Adonai Mitchell, who will challenge Alec Pierce for starting reps opposite of Michael Pittman. That's a great pickup, a great value. I love it. Matt Goncalves, however it's pronounced. I didn't get an exact pronunciation during the draft process. Felt like a little bit of a reach, but not terrible. Like, he's a good player. Unfortunately, had the leg injury that cut his year short at Pittsburgh. Could be a tackle, could end up being a guard. Offensive line depth, that's fine. Tanner Bortolini was a really good pickup. Like, I thought he was surefire going to be a day 2 pick, but didn't have to wait long in the 4th round for his name to be called. This could very much be your heir apparent to Ryan Kelly, who I imagine only has a few more years left in him of high-end play. We've seen he's been banged up the last few years. So it's nice to maybe try to get that heir apparent. I think they did a really good job there. So I very much liked what they did in the first 4 rounds. They get Anthony Gold, another more so a slot, vertical speedster, but brings return capabilities. It was a little high for me, but I don't mind. Jalen Carlisle. I don't know if he ends up being a linebacker or a safety for him, but that was about the range I liked him in. Good value. Jalen Simpson, probably safety. I don't know. Maybe he ends up playing corner. Because I really like him as an off coverage corner. I don't want this cat anywhere around the line of scrimmage. Just undersized. Doesn't have that physicality to his game. But I thought that was good value at pick 164. They grabbed Micah Abram, who didn't make my top 330, but admittedly, this was a really good corner class. He's a guy that has a lot of ball production, so I don't mind taking a shot on him. And then Jonah Lalu out of Oklahoma. Honestly, decent analytics, just didn't see a lot of starting time. Tested well. I say a lot of starting time, didn't even see a lot of actual reps. But he was just kind of in the rotation there. But tested really well. I don't mind taking a shot on him at 234. So I walked away really liking this class. I do wish they probably addressed corner a little bit earlier. But outside of that, this was a very pleasing draft, especially with being able to land Adonai Mitchell and Liatu Latu. And I mean, Adonai Mitchell, they got at 52. Just great value. I'm going to give it an A. Good class for the Indianapolis Colts. Let's move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So they grab Brian Thomas. More importantly, they trade back and they pick up a 2025 3rd and 4th round pick. Great trade, and you still land your receiver in Brian Thomas Jr. Granted, Brian Thomas, at least early in his career, does feel like just a better version of Gabe Davis, but his potential, he could definitely develop into much more than that. I think he would have been up there with Luther Burden if he decided to stay another year in college. Great pickup. Mason Smith might have been a bit of a reach at 48, but not much. He was at 71 on my big board. This seems like a Trent Baalke type of guy. Betting on the upside, tested well. Coming in at 6 foot, 315, so he gives you some size. So not a bad guy to swing on. Then they grab Jarrian Jones, who I actually like better as a slot. I don't know if they're going to play him on the outside, but he does have experience on the outside. He's got decent, good enough size to be able to play on the outside. I am kind of curious to see how the Jags view him, view his role there in the defense. But he is a fit for Ryan Nielsen, so I don't mind it too much. Javon Foster, tackles were coming off the board, so if you were going to get a tackle at 114, you were probably reaching. Javon Foster, you could do worse, but I do think his upside is just really a backup. And then going to the 5th, 6th, 7th round, Deontay Prince I thought was a good pickup, another guy that fits the scheme, really good athlete as well. I didn't like the Keelan Robinson pick at 167. Didn't make my top 330 big board, undersized, speedster that brings return capabilities. I just didn't love that pick. Wasn't a fan. They grab a kicker. I don't really care too much, to be honest. Okay, you got a kicker. He was among the top 3 kickers. It is what it is. Miles Cole, I thought was good get at 236. Another Trent Baalke type of pick. Insane size and length. Good athlete. Just not polished. The production's never really been there for him. So typical Baalke pick. At the end of the day, I really love them moving back, grabbing future draft capital and still being able to land Brian Thomas Jr. I thought that was great. I didn't even mention Jordan Jefferson. Totally forgot. He was a pick there in the 4th round, which, yeah, he gives you size, but I'm not gonna lie to y'all, he was at 275 on my big board. Like, I get it, he's big, but still, it feels like a reach there in the 4th round. Like, I mean, honestly, I feel like the draft wasn't anything special, but they got good players in like Thomas, Smith, Jones, Foster, even Jefferson to a regard. I just disagree with where they got him. And I think Prince is someone to watch out for. But I'm going to ultimately give it a B. Again, really like the trade. I really like the trade back, what they got back for it, and still being able to land Brian Thomas. I think that was kind of huge. Yeah, we got the Kansas City Chiefs. And maybe I was a little harsh on draft night 1st round. I think I gave the Xavier Worthy pick a C, because they also had to move up for it. But it wasn't like it was like insane draft capital to give away. I think a 3rd turned into a 4th, a 5th turned into a 6th. They go out, get their guy. People are like, hey, Hollywood Brown's only on a 1-year deal, but you're kind of hoping Hollywood Brown is going to be much more than just a 1-year player. But yeah, I get it, because I talk about how Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy are essentially the same role. They're small, they're fast. But I mean, the Chiefs have shown those types of guys can thrive in their offense and still coexist. So yeah, maybe I was a little bit harsh. I mean, I'm not saying it's like an A pick, probably more of a B. I will say rumors were a buzzing with Kingsley Suantea potentially being their pick at 32. But turns out, oh no, we were gonna get him at 64. Which, granted, they did trade up for minimal cost and got Kingsley Suantea. So this is great. They got values of position and they got their guys at those positions. Good. That's good. I like it. Jared Wiley at 131, that was about the range I had him going. Keep in mind, they did give away their 3rd round pick, I think, in that move up for Worthy. But Wiley, the pick makes sense. It makes sense. It's within that range. I had him at 139 on my big board. He goes at 131. It's good. It's fair. You add more potential heirs to Travis Kelce's throne. So he's going to be up there with Noah Brown. Then they grabbed Jaden Hicks. Best value. Best freaking value. I had him at 53 on my big board. He was my top safety. Granted, the safety group, there was like 7 or 8 guys. You could have argued we're the top safety, and you would have the safety class ranked all kinds of different ways. I ended up having Hicks edge out Javon Bullard as my top safety. I loved it. At 133, it's a phenomenal pickup. And then they just went out in the 5th, 6th, 7th round and started taking guys I like. I don't grade the UDFA classes in this video, but their UDFA class is pretty bonkers as well. I just love what the Chiefs do. Even when I don't love it, I like it. Like Xavier Worthy, I don't love it, but I like it. But they grab Hunter Norzad. I love the pickup there, man. In the 5th, I had him at 132 on my big board. You get him at 159. And it's not like he's just a center. He played everywhere during his career at Cornell and Penn State. Honestly, might end up being like a Trey Smith replacement in the future. They get Kamal Hayden with appropriate value. A lot of people really liked him. A guy that could work downhill in off coverage. He could also play press. I like it. TJ Hansen, another guy that, hey, 210 on my big board. You get him at 248. Good movement skills. Can maybe also potentially be a future starter at guard. And if anything, you're getting a good depth, a good backup there. So again, I really like a lot of what the Chiefs did in this draft. Like every selection was a job well done. It was a B or higher. They had no bad picks. Literally no bad picks. And they barely even had average picks. They didn't have average pick. They barely had picks that I was like, oh, that's pretty solid. It was either solid, hey, that's a solid pick, or That's a great pick. This was a really good draft class. I ended up giving them an A. Didn't quite hit the crescendo to be an A+ for me. But hey, guys, it was a good draft class. The Chiefs did well. They did well. Moving on to the Los Angeles Chargers and Jim Harbaugh's first pick, or first draft for the Chargers. And it was good. It was good. They did well. They didn't panic at pick 5. Sure, you weren't able to get a trade down. Kind of is what it is. But you end up landing Joe Alt. Because, hey, we know what Jim Harbaugh's all about. We know what Jim Harbaugh is all about. You better be freaking sure that offensive line is the best in the league. And Joe Alt kind of helps that. He is a big improvement over Trey Pipkins. Just saying. And then they move up, I believe, a couple of spots, turning their 4th into a 5th to get Ladd McConkey. That's ideal. Listen, you ended up trading Keenan Allen. There we go. Sorry, a lot of recording today, so I might slur some names. Keenan Allen, you trade him. You get a guy that I think a majority of his snaps are going to take place in the slot, but he can play outside as well. He's going to be able to attack the field at all levels. I love it. That's a great pickup. I had him at 31. You get him at 34. Then you get the Jim Harbaugh guy at 69. In Junior Colson. Yeah, it's linebacker, not a position of value. But he was 54 on my big board. You get him at 69. Nice. And honestly, you get that thumper that can pair real well with Dion Henley, who they drafted last year. Granted, Harbaugh didn't draft him, but I'm sure he's going to like him. Dude's a really good athlete. Probably the one pick I really didn't like were these next two. Justin Boygby, I thought it was a little rich. I don't think he's really got high upside. He might be just more of a high floor player. But that's good along the defensive line. I had him at 212. You get him 105. It's whatever. Tarheeb still, I feel like he's going to end up being more of a slot in the NFL because he just lacks ideal length to stay on the outside. Kind of is what it is. You get him at 137. I had him in the 200s on my big board. But then they were like, all right, let's get back to just drafting value. And they did well. Cam Hart at 140. He was at 105 on my big board. You get him at 140, phenomenal. Size, fairly good speed at that size. Good press corner. Fits John Harbaugh to a T. You got to see this cat at Notre Dame because Notre Dame played Michigan. Right? Am I making things up? Am I just confusing Michigan and Ohio State? I don't know. Maybe I am. Maybe I am. Comment in the... Let me know in the comment section below. That's what y'all are there for, to correct me. Keep me honest. Kamani Vidal is good depth at the running back position. He really just does all things that you want a running back to do well. Not like the best athlete, not like great size, but good size, good athlete. He can pass protect. He's a good pass catcher, and he's good with the ball in his hands. He's good as a runner. Solid pick. And then they just say, hey, we see all this receiver talent falling on the board. Let's just go ahead and take it. They take Brendan Rice, who I don't know why he fell. I haven't looked up any reasons why he may have fell. But they get him at 225. He is at 119 on my big board. Great. You continue to help out Justin Herbert. And then Harbaugh was like, hey, I didn't hit my Michigan player quota. Let's go ahead and get Cornelius Johnson. Oh, what? This is great value too. 182 on my big board. You're going to get him at 253. Freaking phenomenal. Freaking phenomenal. It was a good draft. It was a good draft. This was a good first class by Jim Harbaugh. His first 3 picks were simply good players taken within their ranges. I may have not liked still in a Boygby. They may have been reaches for me, but he closed it out really strong with players who were fallen, and there were players at positions of value. And legit, man, maybe Harbaugh ends up reaping the rewards on Brendan Rice. So I'm going to give this an A class, close to an A+ class, but again, really didn't like the reaches on Boygby, and still very good class there by Jim Harbaugh. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, let's keep this sucker moving. We're going to go to the Las Vegas Raiders. And we're going to talk little Brock Bowers. So, a very interesting class by the Raiders. I really liked a lot of what they did. I really, really do. Brock Bowers, best player on the board. Oh, how are they going to make it work with Michael Mayer? Listen, this team's going to be in 21 personnel. Brock Bowers is a guy you can line up outside. You can line up in the slot. Get fun with it. I like the pick. Best player available. They continue to go best player available and grab my boy, Jackson Powers Johnson. I had him at 23 on my big board. Extraordinary value here at 44, but we already have a center. You're going to be kicking him to left guard. You content with Cody Whitehair there? Probably not. So bam, Jackson Powers Johnson, left guard. I like it. Did like this next pick. They get DJ Glaze or Delmar Glaze. I had him more as an early, more of a mid day 3 pick. Like, I like the athleticism. I think ultimately he ends up playing guard, but maybe he plays tackle for him. They get him at 77. I had him at 178 on my big board. Not a great pick. But from there on out, they did nothing but make good picks. Like DeCamarion Richardson out of Mississippi State. Very good pick. He's a very battle-tested corner there in the SEC. He brings size and speed at 6'1 or 6'2. He's 188 pounds. So I did like that one quite a bit. Tommy Eichenberg at pick 148. He was at 150 on my big board. Appropriate value. Good job. Dylan Labe. I had him at 155 on my big board. You get him at 208. Might be the best receiving back in this class. He's up there with Will Shipley. Trey Taylor was a good pickup. It was about the right value for him. He's a very versatile defensive back. I don't know if he ends up being a slot, a box, a center fielder, or even an outside corner. He's kind of got that versatility to him. He is the cousin of Ed Reed, so he probably sticks at safety. We got MJ Devonshire. So, yeah, he's probably sticking at safety. You took 2 corners here. Granted, Devonshire, 229. I had him at 167 on my big board. He's got speed. He's got size, like 6 foot, 189, good size. He's got good length. He's got ball skills. He's got ball production. He's been a guy that has been making, he's been a guy that is known to make the big play, the splash play and coverage. He's got really good return skills as well. He really does. So he opens up a lot of things for this Raider, this Raider defense, man. This draft class is good. Like, this is like a borderline A grade for me. It truly is, man. Like, really, if not for that Delmar Glaze reach in the 3rd round, like, outside of that, they got players that I like very much at good values. Actually, I think I'm going to call an audible here. I initially had them with a B grade. So I'm calling this on the fly. Again, it's like going back over it. I'm feeling really good about this draft class. I think I'm going to go ahead and give them an A. Granted, like, it's not like they did a phenomenal job at positions of value, though they didn't really need to. Oh, they didn't come away with a quarterback. I honestly didn't think they were in on quarterback in this class. Sounded like they were in the 1st round and just couldn't get a trade done. Kind of is what it is. But, like, man, yeah, at the end of the day, man, I really like a lot of the players they got. I really do. So, yeah, I'm going to give it an A. I'm going to stick with an A for the Raiders. I don't think that Delmar Glaze pick really sours it too much for me. And Glaze was a player I liked. Again, I just liked him in day 3. Okay, let's move on to my Miami Dolphins. Fins up, baby. Fins up. That's right. Dolphins fan in the building. Watch out, because I'm about to say some things about this class. This is such a weird class. This is such a weird draft class. So they end up grabbing Chop Robinson at 21. I think that's a fine pick. He was a borderline fringe 1st rounder. You already saw the top 3 edge players come off the board. I kind of assumed the Dolphins would go edge in the first round. I was just kind of hoping it may have been like a verse, a Latu, hoping one of those guys may fall. Latu ends up going at 15. The Vikings end up trading up at 17 to get Dallas Turner, and then the Rams take Verse at 19. So kind of is what it is. He's still a good player. Lacks ideal length, but stupid good speed. And at that point, I was like, okay, man, as long as we maybe take a swing on offensive line with that second pick and then maybe look for some good defensive interior talent in the class. Because this is the thing, man. This class, like, it's a good class. Yeah, let's just first go pick by pick, and then I'll kind of give you my blurb on my overall feelings. So they go Patrick Paul. He's a project tackle. It is what it is. You need someone to learn behind. Terran Armstead. This is great. This is an ideal situation for Patrick Paul. He was one of my top project tackles in the draft. So, Armstead's probably not there for another year, or at least after this season. So now you have the heir apparent there in Patrick Paul. That's good. That's good. Where things kind of fell off the rails was they traded back into the 4th round. Whoop-de-doo. That's fine. But they go up and get a freaking running back. They traded away a 3rd rounder next year to move back up in the 4th to get a running back. When you already have A-Chain. You already have Mostert. Well, Mostert's he's up there in years. But still, like Mike McDaniel has shown, he has turned journey players into studs and made them really good for their offense. Raheem Mostert's literally walk-in proof. Jared Wilson, who was on the roster last year, is walk-in proof. Why are we doing this? We can't be this in love with speed. Like, I really hated the pick. But there's no denying the value was hella good. He was 75th on my big board. They get him at 120. But they might as well use the 3rd round pick on him. A little indifferent about the pick. So the Dolphins, they proceed to get Muhammad Kamara in the 5th round. That's a good pick. He is older, up there in age, but just another very fast pass rusher that you're going to use along in that rotation. They grab Malik Washington. I really love that pick. He was at 95 on my big board. They get him at 184. Like, this is the thing. They got good value. Like, Kamara was at 108 on my big board. They get him at 158. I like Malik Washington. He's got that yak ability. He is legitimately like a running back with the ball in his hands, but he's also a nifty route runner, but size probably limits him to the slot. Patrick McMorris was a terrible pick. I don't want to crap on the guy. I didn't see it in him. He was an undrafted, like a UDFA to me. They get him at 198. Whatever. Not every pick is gold. Maybe he ends up being a solid contributor. They wrap up the draft at 241 with Taj Washington, which is exceptional value. I had him at 168 on my big board. He goes at 241. But you just grabbed a small slot receiver. Like that, straight up. Let's talk about it. I'm going to go to my blurb. I'm going to tell you what I wrote about my Miami Dolphins. I don't love this draft for the Dolphins, but there is no denying they took good players at positions of value. I wish a pick or two were used on the offensive or defensive interior. I wish they tried to move back and acquire more draft capital. I wish they didn't throw away a 3rd round pick in next year's draft to grab another running back in the 4th. I wish they didn't grab 2 small receivers, but I won't argue that they did well to get edge help and a high upside project tackle to sit behind Armstead. They got good value when it was on the board. This draft class is like fringe C to me, but again, they address positions of value: edge, tackle, wide receiver. They got them at really good values, especially like from Jalen Wright. Good value. Don't love that they threw away next year's 3rd, but it is what it is. Kamara, good value. Washington, good value. Washington, good value. That's right, 2 Washingtons that will be playing the slot. I ultimately ended up giving us a B. This is like a fringe C. But again, they drafted guys that were either well within their range or that were fallen, and they drafted positions of value. Range C, but I'm giving it a B. Giving it a B. You let me know in the comments section below. Let's move on to the New England Patriots. After I kind of was all over the place for my Dolphins, let's see what I have to say about the Patriots. That's right. Okay, what are we doing here? Drake May at 4, or at 3. Phenomenal pick. He's great. I love it. Good job. You got your franchise quarterback. You did what you were supposed to do and got your franchise quarterback. And then it picked 37 in the second round. You get Jalen Polk. He was at 49 on my big board. He was like, again, with this receiving class, it's so good. We're gonna have guys kind of like all over the place. I like Polk. I don't think he's a number 1 in the NFL. I think he could be a really good number 2. He can attack all 3 levels of the field. He's more explosive than he is fast. Very good hands. Very good number 2, but still, I don't feel like they got that alpha in the offense at receiver. They get Caden Wallace. I feel like it's kind of a reach. He's definitely playing tackle for him. Granted, they got because they went on to get Layden Robinson. So for me, Wallace was a little bit of a reach at 68. Actually, quite a bit of a reach at 68. But he is going to be your left tackle. That means he's moving from right to left. Then they get Layden Robinson, which means Caden Wallace sure as hell is a tackle. Robinson, he's an okay guard. Not the like greatest athlete, but like someone who's going to be mean. You could get by not being the greatest athlete on the interior. But I had him at 194 on my board. He goes at 103. So these are like back-to-back picks along the offensive line that I just didn't like where the Patriots took them. And then they come back and totally redeem themselves and get Javon Baker. I love Baker. He was at 78 on my big board. They get him at 110. This is great. Good size, good vertical ability to go up and just get jump balls. Decent enough yak ability. More so, he's a guy that's just kind of hard to bring down rather than make you miss. But that's a good pickup. They go get Marcellus Dial, corner out of South Carolina. That was an all right pick. I had a draftable grade on him, so it's fine at 180. Joe Milton at 193 was a little puzzling. Apparently, they're not moving him to tight end, so I don't think this is a case where it's like where Washington, once upon a time, drafted Robert Griffin III highly, and then in the 4th round got Kirk Cousins. I don't think it's going to be a scenario like that, but I don't know. We'll see. You get to develop him, maybe like high-end backup, or if something bad happens to May. It's interesting. I'll say that. Jaheim Bell, he was a top 30 visit for the Patriots. They get him at 231. I had him at 175. He's a tight end too. He's a big slot. He's even an H-back in some regard. So that's a good pick. Ultimately, with the New England Patriots, I gave it a B. Because the Patriots, they got their franchise quarterback. They brought in 2 good receivers at good value. I think they did reach a bit on the offensive line, and double dipping on quarterback kind of felt meaningless when you have Jacoby Brissett there, but you're looking to the future. It's fine. I mean, to be fair, I don't really know what, I guess we do know what their plan is when it comes to Joe Milton, future backup quarterback who might have starting potential. Cool. Like, all in all, I just felt like it was a solid class. They definitely swung on positions of value, being tackle, being wide receiver, being quarterback. They just didn't always get great value. So, there we go. Before we go to our next pick, I think it's the Jets. I'm going to stay in the AFC East. Before we get there, got to give a shout out to Underdog of Fantasy. Just because the football season's over doesn't mean the betting season is over. There's still basketball, baseball, cricket, esports, you name it, they got it. They got weekly best ball. They got higher or lower on player prop bets. When you sign up using promo code BROSCHMO, they match that first deposit up to $100 dues. So get in on the action. Sign up at Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code BROSCHMO. And please, bet responsibly. Bet within your means. New York Jets had a very interesting draft. I will say that. Ultimately, I think they had a fine draft. They did the responsible thing and looked long-term with their first pick and got a tackle, Olu Fashanu. That's good value for him. I like it. Aside from that, everyone else was taken well within their range. I don't know why they got 2 running backs. I don't know why they chose to get 2 big bruisers. It's like, well, that increases our chances of hitting on one. They're backup running backs. They're backup running backs. But I don't know. It is what it is. Like, I like the Malachi Corley pick. I think that was fine. They did a good job of getting an extra 3rd rounder next year. I think that was in a trade down with, was that with the Vikings? They got that extra 3rd rounder. I think it was, but I'm not positive. Don't quote me. But Malachi Corley, he's a different level of spice in the receiver room. I like that. Braylon Allen, I thought that was a fine pick there at pick 134. He was at 127 on my big board. They didn't pick again until 171. They got a quarterback. I like it. Address positions of value. Tyrod Taylor, he's your backup, but maybe you could coach up Travis to be your backup of the future. I like it. Maybe he ends up being your franchise quarterback. Probably not, but you're willing to take that swing in the 5th round. I don't get at 173 why you go with another bruiser. Like, I like Isaiah Davis. I think that was good, appropriate value for him, but I don't know why you go with another bruiser back. I just don't. I love the Quantez Stiggers pick. That may have been pick of the day for me, man. He's a guy that I just loved his journey, and it was good to see him get drafted in the NFL, going there in the 5th round to the Jets. And a team that's going to love him as depth. And, man, I don't know, man. Maybe he ends up being an heir apparent to like a DJ Reed. Maybe. They end the draft with Mr. Irrelevant being Jalen Key at safety. That's fine. I have him at 308 on my big board. 257. That's good value. That's appropriate value. I did like that they traded John Myers Franklin during this draft for just a 6th rounder in 2026. But hey, what are you going to do? Ultimately, I ended up giving this a B. Again, it's just a fine draft to me. Didn't really feel like anything special. No one pick really like, oh, blew me away. They just went in and had a good draft. Sounds good. Also, address positions of value. Kind of important. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who had a good draft. They had a good draft. Like, a big focal point of this draft was, hey, we're going to make sure our offensive line returns to prominence. We're going to make sure that sucker is going to be great. So they end up drafting Troy Fautanu, who I thought was good value at pick 20. He was my 10th best prospect on the board. Am I a little worried? Like, I don't think they've announced what they're going to do, if they're going to keep Broderick Jones at right tackle. Because if you remember, he played both right and tackle during his rookie season. I don't know if they're going to keep him at right tackle and keep Fautanu at left, or if they're going to put Jones at left tackle and Fautanu at right. Regardless, I think it's a really good pick. And then they, again, double dip on offensive line, and they go with center Zach Frazier. So, bam, you got your center option. He's going to come in there and compete with, oh, golly, what was it? Nick Herbig, right? Yeah, no, Nate Herbig. Because Nate ate. So it's Nate Herbig. There we go. I always get the Herbig brothers confused. I'm sorry. They're on the same team. What can I do? Don't do that with the Hayward brothers. But Frazier's a good pick up there. I like that. And honestly, if they were done with the offensive line, it would have been fine there. But they weren't. They weren't. And we'll talk about it in a sec. Roman Wilson, good pickup. I pegged him for the Steelers. I thought he'd probably be pick at 52 for him. And so much so, I had him at 52 on my big board. He ends up going at 84. Really good value there. I think he immediately comes in the slot, and he's able to get some good short yards for you. He can attack downfield, and despite being more of a slot size, he gets after it as a contested catcher. He truly, truly does. And then at 97, they grab Peyton Wilson. I really liked that pick. So apparently a lot of teams kind of viewed, because of the injuries, I guess he's missing an ACL. I didn't know that. Just thought he had a ton of ACL injuries, but because of that, they kind of viewed Peyton Wilson as a one contract player. And the Steelers were like, we're okay with that. We'll take value. And they got him. He was 48 on my big board. Got him at 97. And then probably my favorite pick for the Steelers was Mason McCormick. I had him at 35 on my big board. I'll admit, I was higher on him than anyone else. Probably wasn't realistic. He was probably more, for me, I thought he was at least going to be a top 100 player. They get him at 119. Hell freaking yes. Yes, let's go. What a good pick. I'm not saying the pick made me jump out of the chair. I had to let Gojo out. He doesn't like talking about the Steelers, apparently. Big Chiefs fan, that Gojo. But golly, what a good pickup. And they just continued to make good picks during the draft. Logan Lee, I thought, was solid. I thought it was a fair region for him. You haven't really gotten much out of DeMarvin Leal. So Logan Lee could come in there, at the very least be good depth. Ryan Watts, whether he ends up playing quarter or whether he ends up playing safety, great size, great length. I liked that at 195. Ultimately, I gave this an A+. I really liked this draft class. The Steelers legitimately renovated the offensive line by taking 3 players I had in my top 41, with Zach Frazier of all things being 41 for me. And they still managed to snag quality at receiver. They took my linebacker 2 in this class. It was really good in my opinion. I thought the Steelers had a really, really good draft. Good on them. Okay, I think we only have one more team to talk about here, right? In the AFC, it's just the Tennessee Titans. Well, let's go. Let's talk about the Titans. Tighten up, baby. I think I'm going to hop on Titan Upload sometime maybe this week and talk about their draft. But don't worry, I'll talk about their draft here too. So the Tennessee Titans, they end up getting J.C. Latham. Honestly, everybody and their mom thought Joel would make it to 7. He didn't. They get J.C. Latham. J.C. Latham was widely talked about, at least projected, to be going in the potentially the top 10, if not the top 15. Draft analysts were kind of split on it. Is he an early first? Is he a mid first? Is he a late first? No one really argued that he was a first round pick. It was just, where is he going to go in the first? I happen to be one of the guys lower on him. I had him at 29. He goes at 7. I get it with Joe Alt off the board. He kind of had to make a play there. And I think he's going to be a good pass protector. I don't think he really plays with that nasty in the run game, but at least he's going to protect Will Levis. So I liked the pick there. At 38, now we get into a little more dicey waters, right? T'Vondre Sweat. There's no denying T'Vondre Sweat was a top 50 prospect, but then the character concerns. He was dropped on many people's boards. I dropped him to 106. But there's no denying he was a top 50 prospect. So the Titans taking the swing on a player like that, get that meat in the middle. They didn't really have that big meaty boy in the middle after things kind of like flamed out with Tyler Tart. They grab Cedric Gray. I thought that was a really solid pick there at linebacker. I thought he was one of the more better all-around linebackers. I didn't think he had like incredibly good upside, but I thought it was good enough to where I think he could be a good linebacker in the NFL. And it would not surprise me if he started over Kenneth Murray. Matter of fact, I kind of hope that for you Titans fans. Grabbing Jarvis Brownlee, I really liked. Had him at 90 on my big board. He goes at 146 here. I'm curious if he's going to be an outside or an inside player. But he's going to be good for the defense there. James Williams, got him with appropriate value. Is he a safety? Is he a slot? Or it's not slot, but is he a safety? Is he a linebacker? It's kind of going to be my question. And then they ended things off with Jalen Harrell, who I think is a really good DPR option. It was 252. That's fine. Actually, in my 7th-round mock, I was like, I think Jalen Harrell will be Mr. Irrelevant. I missed by like 5 picks. What can I say? I was close. All in all, I ended up giving this draft class a B. Some people might think this is too high. But like ultimately what I think here is JC Latham was a player that was projected to go anywhere in the 1st round. You either loved him or you were more willing for another team to take that shot on him. When it comes to Sweat, lower on people's boards because of the character concerns. He was a top 50 prospect before the DWI. He was. It's hard to fault the Titans for taking swings on those guys, but to do that with your top 2 picks is kind of a scary thing. Maybe they hit, but honestly, the rest of their draft class was good and taken within their projection. I think a B is a fair grade. I've seen some people give it C, and I'm like, I don't feel like it was. I don't feel like that it was a C. I think some people are like either. I think the people that are giving it C's really didn't like JC Latham as a prospect and didn't like them taking a swing on Sweat given the character concerns. And I think that's fair. For me, I think the swings are essentially could be worth taking. I will say I'd rather you take only one of those swings with your first 2 picks, but I think their swings well worth taking. Again, end up giving it a B, but shoot, if you haven't already checked out my grades for the NFC, then shoot, check out that video down here. But as always, until next time, be easy, my friends. Later.